Hello, the Bishop here, and I just thought that for my first Yu-Gi-Oh video I'd decide to go over my first main deck, sort of a deck profile. Now, I do use some proxies and all that, but for the most part, my deck is done. So, like 90% of it. Some of the more expensive stuff is like the Titanial and all that. Anything over 20, and I probably don't have it, but so, Naturias, you may ask, what do they do? Well, they do one thing simply and very well. They lock out your opponent. And at least this is what my Naturia build does, and the heart of this build is the Naturia Bamboo Shoot. It's a level 5, 2000 attack, 2000 defense. Don't know if you can see that. But its main effect is whenever you tribute for a Naturia, your opponent cannot activate spell or traps. Yeah, what else be said? But anyways, some people like to include 3 bamboo shoots. However, as stated before, dead draws are never good, and an extra bamboo shoot is nice if your opponent takes out your first one. But having 3, just a bit too much. Next up is the Naturia Cliffs, one of my personal favorites. They're good searchers for your deck if you want to pull out specific Naturias. Normally you want to pull out, more cliffs to sort of absorb a volley of attacks. But they can also be good for searching for specific tuners when you want to swarm with synchros. But yeah, 3 of them is a necessity, unlike bamboo shoots. Next up are Cosmo Beats, another great Naturia. They're tuners, level 2. Their special ability is whenever your opponent normal summons or sets, you get special summons from your hand, which can always be good. In fact, it can set you up for having multiple synchros in the first turn if you play your cards right. So, 3 of them, once again, necessity. And here we go. Dandelion. Big surprise, eh? Well, nevertheless, this Naturia build got really hit with the March ban list, with them being limited to 1, so just my one precious dandelion here. Anyways, still vital to this build, if only for more tribute fodder or sinking. But next up are Lone Fires, of course, in a plant deck. They're good for, once again, pulling out specific Naturias or Titanial as we go along. But they can but the only problem, though, is that they can't be used for syncing the Naturia synchros, which is kind of a shame, because for some reason 3 seems to be the magic number in terms of levels. Next up are Cherries. Pretty nice, not exactly necessary in my opinion, but, they're never a bad thing. They're level 1. Mainly, if you draw more than one at a time, then that was bad, because you require 2 of them in your deck in order for their effect to kick off, which, if they're killed by your opponent, whatever means necessary, you get to pull out 2 from your deck. Yeah, special summon 2 from your deck and face down defense, so they can be really, really handy. Next up, more optional stuff, but Naturia Horn Needles. They're not vital in the least, and you can always swap them out mainly with your side deck, but they have a nice effect. They can negate special summons by attributing other Naturias other than themselves, which is a much better effect than most other Naturias. Next up is the Naturia Pumpkin. I don't know where my other one is. I have run two in this, but once again, another very, very helpful for pulling out synchros. Level 4, if your opponent has a monster on the field, when you normal summon this, you get to special summon another Naturia from your hand. Very nice. Naturia Stag Beetles, once again, not necessary. You can swap them out with anything you see fit in your side deck. But they also have nice effects, and it's easy to get them out. You can start resurrecting your dead Naturias if your opponent decides to. activate effects when they're attacking. Uh, Titanial, yeah, dead draw if you get her, but if you get Lone Fire out, then she'd be a force to be reckoned with. Especially with the 2800 attack and the fact that she's essentially a beast and Barkion all in one, and more about that. Spore, if you need a urgent synchro and you have enough levels for it, you know, once again, side deck worthy. Uh, on to magic cards now. Uh, some of the most important ones are Leo Drake's Mane. In other words, instant beat stick. Gives a Naturia 3000 at the cost of negating their effects, but when you have something like cherries or horn needles out, well, that's not that big of a deal. Or Cosmo Beats. Barkion's Bark, not as necessary, but it's nice if you want to activate stuff like Mane and all that, and you don't want your precious Naturias to get hit by a trap. So, now on to Pots of Avarice. I actually want to include another one in here, but I don't have one at the moment, so I filled it in with filler for now. I'll get on to which ones I filled in when we get to those. Fisher, your run-of-the-mill staples, so not much to explain there. Monster Reborn, ditto. On to traps. Pollinosis. Oh, so lovely. It's essentially a, nope card. The opponent tries to activate monster effect, trap, spell. You negate that by tributing a plant. Also, one of the nice features is you can negate a normal or special summon with the same card, and it's a counter, unlike a lot of other cards. So, it'd be really, really nice, and a deal breaker for your opponent. Have another one in there. I used to run 3, but I found that I tended to draw more of them than I did plants, so Wall of Thorns, a mirror force for plants, so I actually want to include another one of these, along with a Pot of Avarice, but I need to find one first, so coming Crimson Crisis, which kind of hard to find around here. Exterios Fang, they're pretty much a magic jammer, but they also work on traps, so they can be really nice. It's normally I wouldn't consider putting in a magic jammer, but when you can, do it for either one, I'll acknowledge that. Divine Wrath, always a must, if only to prevent those crucial moments where the enemy starts chaining with monster effects, especially if you lock down with Naturia Bamboo Shoot. This may be the one thing that makes or breaks you. Threatening Roar, better than Negate Attack because it prevents an opponent from attacking altogether. Bottomless Trap, I wouldn't suggest running a trap hole because, Bottomless Trap, you're gonna want to use a trap like this whenever the opponent brings out a synchro. So, Call of the Haunted to bring back any synchro monsters that you direly need can always be useful. Now, 7 Tools of Bandit and Trap Dust Shoot are the 2 filler cards that I'm including right now, if only because they're not entirely useless. But once I get a Pot of Avarice and another Wall of Thorns, then I'm taking these 2 out, so don't get used to them. Now on to our extra deck. Beast. In the flesh. Just pulled her recently. About $25 there, and well worth it. Level 5 requires Earth Tuner and Earth Monsters. 2200 attack, and at the cost of just putting the top 2 cards of your deck into the graveyard, you can negate a spell and destroy it. So, very, very good for locking out your opponent. Next up is Naturia Barkion, level 6, 2500 attack, and is essentially the trap card variant of Beast. However, instead of putting the top 2 cards of your deck into the graveyard, you must remove 2 from play, which is nice because it doesn't require specifically monsters. Landoys, mostly for Tolol's, 2350 attack. Whenever a monster effect activates, you can send a spell to the graveyard to negate and destroy it. Considering that I don't run nearly as many spells as, a normal deck would, his usefulness is kind of limited. Leo Drake, level 9, 3000 attack, no effect, Foretold. Splendid Rose, it gets plant support, and you can actually use its effects to devastating advantage, especially to sweep the opponent if they're trying to go on the defensive. Level 6, so it's not too pricey and very nice. And of course, Stardust. If you don't know why you should include a Stardust in the deck, then, go read the starter section. And that's my Naturia deck right there, in all of its glory. 40 cards, and yeah, I'm proud of it. Especially since I built it all from hand with very few guidelines from the internet, so. This has been the Righteous Bishop, and signing off.